Well, good morning. Let's call to order the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board meeting of October the 25th, 2012. It is the appointed hour, and we have a quorum present. You have received, members of the Advisory Board, you've received the minutes of the September 27th meeting. Are there additions or corrections?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. You also have included in your packet a proposed meeting schedule for 2013. David, you want to tell us about that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The Oklahoma Open Meetings Act requires that we file this schedule with City Clerk by December 15th, and this is scheduled for the meetings for next year. It's very similar to what we've done year after year, same day, same timing. So we're just asking that you approve this schedule.
If you had a chance to look at it, you know that it will be the, the fourth Thursday of each month? Is that what it is? And that, except for November and December, in which case we try to accommodate the holiday season in the same manner that the city staff does. Is that
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It moved up 1 week in November and December.
Any questions about that?
I move that we accept the schedule for next year.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the meeting schedule for 2013. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The meeting schedule is adopted. Okay, David, how about the good news about the revenue and expenditure report, item 4?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you have in your packet today is revenue expenditure report for both August and September. They're in the usual format that you're used to seeing. I'll go over the August one first. This is for the period ending August 31st, 2012. You can see for the month the revenue of $8,661,430. That is 1.84 above target. And then for the fiscal year, we have $17,506,000. And then for the total program, there's $222,068,290. Go moving down to the expenditures. You can see the various expenditures for each of the programs for the month, totaling $707,335. For the fiscal year, it's the same, $707,335, since August is the first year of the fiscal year, first month of the fiscal year. And then total for the program to date of $13,574,675. And moving on to the second report for the period ending September 30th. Very similar with sales tax for the month, $9,136,801. You can see the interest of $37,000, and then with total for the month of $9,174,439. For total for the program revenues for the period ending September 30th of $231,242,729. And again, at the bottom you can see the expenditures, various expenditures for each of the programs. For the month, $2,456,956. Bulk of that is for a parcel of land in the park that was purchased that month. Then you can see also the total for the program over on the right, $16,031,631.
That expenditure for the park purchase does not include the one that's on the agenda for today. That's a new one.
It is the one that's on the agenda.
It's on the one
Yes.
that's on the agenda for today. Well, Michael, as our reigning financial guy, you want to give us your comments about it?
I don't have any comments other than, I guess, it's nice to see for the month. I think we're almost 13% over the target, so that was good news.
Yeah, if we think about it, if the proposal, the projected revenue was going to be about $8.3 million is what our planning is made on, and so when we see one that says $9,000,001, that's got to be good news.
Yes, sir.
We're getting ready to get into the Thunder basketball season too, so
Yeah, there you go. Any questions or comments about the revenue and expenditure reports? That's not an action item, is it, David?
Yes, it is.
It is. We need to approve that then.
Move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the revenue and expenditure reports. Further discussion?
One comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Is don't get used to it. You've got 5 more years to go on it. It's going to change.
Yeah. I bet you're right, Pat. All right. All in favor say aye. Approving the report. Opposed, no. The report is approved. You have in your packet a resolution that David's going to tell us about. It's item 5 on the agenda. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 5 is recommend resolution approving contract for architectural services with Populous Incorporated for the MAPS 3 Convention Center, fee of $898,000, and assigning testing laboratories project M3-C003. This is for the conceptual study for the convention center that we've talked about for a while. Went through the usual procedures for architecture and engineering consultants, and Populous is the one that's been chosen. Subcommittee has approved this. We're asking your approval today.
I'll just remind you that 3 members of the subcommittee participated in this selection process: Roy Williams, John Williams, and Mike Carrier, who's with us today from the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And this was presented to the Convention Center subcommittee yesterday and was unanimously approved. So it comes with our unanimous recommendation. What's your pleasure? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution approving the contract for architectural services. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. David, item 6.
Thank you. Item 6 is recommend resolution ratifying and approving addendum number 1, awarding contract to CGC LLC, project M3-F001, MAPS 3 Oklahoma Fairgrounds Phase 1 improvements, preliminary site grading, base bid plus alternate 1, $636,363.75, and approving contract and bonds. This is the first project for the fairgrounds. It is part of Phase 1. We felt that it was advantageous for us to go ahead and do the grading portion of this project. So it is basically half to 3/4 of the Phase 1 project. We received several bids. We feel comfortable with the bid, and we ask your approval.
Thank you. Bob, any comments from the subcommittee?
The subcommittee met yesterday, but unfortunately we did not have a quorum, so we could not take action and make a formal recommendation. We did discuss the contract among the subcommittee members who were there, and there was no dissent from that, but it does not come to this body with any formal action from the subcommittee. But we did feel that it was, we've talked with David about it, felt that it was important to advance this and go ahead and bring it to this board today, even though we don't have the formal recommendation subcommittee.
All right, so David, you're asking that we go ahead and act on this today.
I am.
All right. Is there further discussion? Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded that we adopt this resolution regarding the fairgrounds project. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It's unanimously adopted. That brings us to item 7, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 7 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 2 to contract for engineering services for the MAPS 3 Oklahoma River Racecourse lighting improvements, fee increase of $15,000, project M3-R002. This is a project that is under construction right now, but as we've gone along with the improvements at the river, there's some things that are being coordinated, the windscreen, the whitewater facility, some of those things, and we're also coordinating with OG&E. And this is completely about power source and transformer locations and things like that as they relate to the whitewater and the windscreen. And as those projects continue, conflicts have been identified, and the consultant has been asked to make some changes to the plans. So that's what this amendment is about, so that he can change his plans for the contractor for these transformer locations.
Thank you, David. Dee, anything from the committee that you want us to understand?
Since this is such uncharted territory, and we realize that there has to be some adjustments made, so we unanimously agreed to back this.
All right, then. Shall we adopt the resolution?
So move.
Is It's been moved. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution in item 7 regarding the river lighting improvements. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Item 8. David?
Thank you. Item 8 is receive consultant review committee report and recommend resolution authorizing negotiation of contract with Johnson & Associates Incorporated for the MAPS 3 Oklahoma River Phase 2 improvements, project M3-R005. This is a consulting contract for Phase 2 of all the exciting things that are going on at the river. Phase 2 includes some new race course equipment, some judging kiosks, some cameras that will help with the racing, sound system, some infrastructure that will be used with the cameras and the sound system, scoreboards. So there's a lot of little pieces that are to be added to the racing down there. Usual routine for selecting the consultant. Johnson is a good engineer that we've had a lot of luck with, so we recommend that you approve this.
Very good. Do your committee consider this?
Yes, we did, and we recommend it.
Further questions for David or Dee? Shall you want to move to approve that, Dee?
So move.
Been moved and seconded that we approve item 7. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The report is adopted. That brings us to item 9. David, any discussion items that you have under that subheading?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have anything right now.
Okay, that brings us then to item 10, the subcommittee reports. Kim, I'm going to save you for last since we have some guests here that you and David will want to tell us about. Bob, anything else from the State Fairgrounds Subcommittee?
No, again, because we didn't have a quorum, our discussion was pretty limited yesterday.
Okay.
Nothing to report.
All right. Zane, you want a report from the Transit Committee?
The Transit Committee met yesterday afternoon, very good conversations on operations and maintenance. I know that's a very important issue of a number of the city councilmen and citizens. While we had nothing to move or act on, we did have about an hour-long conversation just on how to produce revenues for operation and maintenance, threw some ideas around and stuff, but nothing was actionable. Just good, spirited discussion. Councilman Shadid was there and participated in the discussions also. That's all.
Questions for Zane? David and Amanda, a question, just so that you'll know we need you. Councilman Ryan was asking me if we were going to deal under the action items with the resolution authorizing the payment. I see it's included under item 11 for informational items. Do we need to advance that, or is it okay to do it there?
No, sir, we can keep it there.
Okay? All right. Let's see then. Dee, anything else from the River Subcommittee?
No, we had a talk by S2O and a slide presentation of what's going on at the river, and it's really pretty amazing, and just what we're looking for in the future. All good.
Okay, good. Michael Dover, Senior Wellness Subcommittee.
Yes. We did meet yesterday. We had a well-attended meeting, a lot of guests, people interested in this first RFP that we expect to be going out, not too far distant future. Lively discussion, learning a lot. I hope by our next meeting we might have a contract with our consultant to help us finish up this RFP and get it out to the public.
Any questions for Mike? Sue Hooper couldn't be here today. David, who was going to give the report? Is there a report from the Trails and Sidewalks? You cover that in yours? Okay. I'll just mention for the convention center, we did have the resolution that you've already indicated, and the effort there is continuing for the site acquisition, and that's still a work in progress. That brings us to the Park Subcommittee, and I know that Kim and David are both going to talk to us some about that. You want to begin, Kimberly?
I I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to say that this is an especially busy week for the Park Subcommittee and certainly our consultants, Hargraves and Associates, who are here with us this week. Not only will we be holding our second public meeting this evening in the Downtown Public Library, 4th floor, beginning at 6 p.m., but in our subcommittee meeting yesterday, we saw the culmination of all the hard work that we put into our Parks requirement document in real scale, and I'll let Hargraves share that with you. But I also want to thank the MAP staff for dividing all of their time between, I think, a myriad of over 25 focus group meetings with Hargraves and their related consultants. That's an amazing amount of task on that department, and we sincerely appreciate it. We also received yesterday a report on our utilities from Johnson. You can see that there's a park acquisition map that we'll look at a little bit later, but we're almost all blue, and as promised, we will have our blue party to celebrate all the property acquisition in the upper park. And then I'm also excited to say that of all the meetings that we have this week, tomorrow will also be a meeting of all of the different consultants on the downtown projects that are going on to begin coordination and collaboration for cohesiveness as we move forward. So great times in the city, and certainly proud to be a part of it.
Great. David, do you want to take up these informational items first, then, before you introduce our guests?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet, as Ms. Lowe just discussed, and you'll see also on the board now, the acquisition map for the park. And what you have here as far as the informational item is that the resolution was sent to council on 9/25 for purchase of what is known as parcel V1, which is the northwest corner of the park. So other than the ODOT land that will be transferred here soon that's down south, we have essentially 2 parcels left for completion of the park.
Wow.
So that is the informational items. If you'd like me, I can go on to item 12. I'll just give you a quick update on some of the...
Well, David, before you go, I want to make sure I'm understanding this. Do we need to approve the resolution?
No, sir. No, sir. It's information only.
Thank you. Okay, sure. Go ahead then.
So I'll just add a little bit more for the subcommittee reports. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the convention center, and we saw the contract today. We will soon be started with council approval next week with the conceptual study of the convention center. Trails and sidewalks, the sidewalk master plan goes to City Council soon, and design will begin soon, right after approval from City Council. 2 sections of the river trails continue in design right now. On the river, racecourse lighting is under construction. The windscreen is in design. The whitewater facility is in design, and phase 2 that we discussed today will soon begin. So you can see that we're very busy down at the river. Senior wellness, as Mr. Dover reported, subcommittee continues to work on the RFP for the operating partner. I think that is going very well, and we'll soon have that out on the street. Fairgrounds, we received the bids, and you approved the contract today for the grading. That's the first project out at the fairgrounds. Limited scope master plan is underway, and you'll be seeing that in the coming months. Consultant selection for phase 2 will soon be scheduled, and phase 1 improvements will soon be bid. For transit, purchase of the Santa Fe station for the intermodal hub is underway, and analysis and review continues for the preferred route. And as we just discussed on the park, land acquisition continues with the 2 parcels that are left. Design continues, and with that, I'd like to point out that George Hargraves and Mary Margaret Jones are both here today from Hargraves and Associates. They're our consultants for the park. We've been very busy with them. I think we've spent every working hour with them this week, and it's been great. We've got the public meeting coming up tonight at 6 o'clock at the library. So, like I said, we're very busy, and I'd like to invite them up to the podium to tell us what's going on with the park.
Welcome. We're glad to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chairman and board members. I'll go through a sort of reduce, for those of you who have seen the longer presentation, I won't be giving that longer presentation right now. I'll urge you to come this evening instead to get the full thing, but I'll give you a synopsis. This is where we are. We are this evening presenting 3 alternative approaches, and I'll say right up front that we aren't really asking people to choose one. By doing 3 approaches, it gives us the vehicle to get feedback and to get input as to what people like about each of them. Because what you'll see us do is come back with something that puts together all of the best, all of the most favored aspects of each of the 3 approaches. I only show this chart to remind everyone that we have a strong number of local partners and national experts on various subjects. We're now at the 2nd of 3 planned public meetings for the master plan phase. We'll be back in December, as you see. And then a quick little summary of some of the background analysis we do. When we're designing a park, we feel it's very important to look at the history and the climate and the regional context of that park. Oklahoma has a very rich history through many different chapters, all of which provide information for us and potential fodder, if you will, for exhibitory or interpretation within the park. There's a climate here that's quite challenging, and we need to be aware of the temperatures. We need to be aware of water and how we use water on the site. And that leads us to solutions like shade and studying the very impact that shade can make in a park and how important that is in the design of the park, both trees and architectural shade structures. You have a wind. We've been very aware of that the last few days. Sometimes that wind is helpful. Sometimes that wind is something you want buffer from. But we also want to think about that wind as a potential energy source. And we have been studying that with our consultants, our sub-consultants, in terms of harnessing some of that power to actually power the park. Oklahoma City's at a very unique crossroads of 3 ecological systems, and that too gives us something to draw upon as we look to rich landscapes for this park. Now, some of you may have filled out this survey. This survey was presented at our last public meeting, and it's also been online. And I have to say, we've never received so much input in any project we've done in any city. It's really great. We've gotten over 1,600 responses, and counting, I think. So it's been a really fantastic tool for us. As you can see, the survey was broken down into 4 categories: recreation, performance and events, education and interpretation, and special features and destination attractions. We asked people to rank their top 5 within each of those categories. So these are the top 5 within recreation. You can see a lot of interest in biking and picnicking and explorational play and paddle boating, possibly. And in performances, if you put together all of them that deal with performance really in terms of a sort of an amphitheater-like feature, performances, stage, bandshell, concerts, symphony, you can see a great deal of interest in that happening on the site. And it's one of the ways that this park can be quite different from and complementary to Myriad Gardens, because much bigger venues can be hosted here, and that is a real asset. Within education and interpretation, nature walks at the very top. We found that very interesting. Native plants, sustainability, a lot of awareness of those issues and desire for that kind of natural respite from the urban environment. And then finally, the things that are fun, from interactive fountains to touching that river. You've been talking a lot about the river today, and people really want to get to the river. And we're really happy that this park is part of that core-to-shore goal that has been aspired to for so long within the city. So we want to talk just a little bit about the importance of the connection to the river. You are not a group I need to spend very much time on because you know this very well, all the ongoing projects along the river. But just to begin to think about how they could link one to another and how this downtown park is a step toward the realization of the linkage of those various destinations, from Myriad Gardens to Downtown Park to, in the future, the river. Our project, it's important that we make sure that the public understands that our scope and our project budget does not actually touch the river. We get to Southwest 15th Street, but it sort of puts in play a next step for really engaging the river, and even perhaps thinking of a loop that could engage across the river with improvements planned for Wiley Post Park. So it's very exciting. You can think of it as a number of steps from downtown to the river. So in these alternative approaches that I'm going to present to you, there's some constants. And the constants you see listed here. They're the same they're distributed differently, but they're the same in any scheme. And the first of those is site sustainability. And we're looking at energy, water, and construction and operations. So all those categories of sustainability on the site, from using native trees and native plants and existing trees on the site to capturing stormwater. And that is a really important aspect of this project, particularly if we head toward a scheme that has a lake of some size. To be able to feed that lake with water from the site and not use potable water is a very important goal, we think, and to use water from the site to irrigate the plants on the site. We're doing borings now to test the feasibility of this, but it's looking very positive. It's looking like this concept really has legs. It's very flat, and a little bit of topography can go a long way on the site, both for articulation of space, giving you prospect, and giving you, sorry, I keep moving around too much, I guess, giving you prospect and giving you refuge from the wind. Also enhancing performance and viewing of a stage in a sort of amphitheater setting. And finally, just for the pure, unmitigated joy of play, something we all need more of in our lives. Parking and circulation, we're always asked about that. We're looking at a scheme where we can have parking on both the west and east edges of the park, and it was suggested in the subcommittee yesterday that we think about that along Southwest 10th Street as well. So this could be what we call tailgate parking, and it's pretty amazing. We can get up to 800, possibly up to 800 parking spaces, and if those can be metered, that revenue source, let me go back for a minute, that revenue source could be a very important source of revenue for operations and maintenance. Our economic consultant thinks that could fund as much as 10% of our operations and maintenance needs. And so far that idea is meeting with some amount of approval with the various parties we've introduced that idea to. Circulation, pedestrian and vehicular, is important. Obviously the promenade, that connection from core to shore, being a driving part of the park's design, and the connection to Skydance Bridge, but also the connections from the east and the west. The park needs to feel very porous. It needs to feel very open and welcoming and connected to its neighbors. We think there will be some structures needed, not a lot given the budget, or given our mindfulness of the budget, but there will be some, and these are the list of the kinds of things that we're looking at that would be provided within structures within the park, from food to shade to restrooms and rentals for things like bikes and potentially paddle boats. And we have a jewel of a structure existing on the site. There are a number of structures that are being assessed, but this one is the one, I think, about which there is no doubt that we must eventually make a very integral part of the park. The city doesn't own this, so there are issues of timing and budget and allowable uses, but you see that it has 50,000 square feet. It's really big. And the top list are the kinds of uses that could go into the front part of the building that is the iconic and very beautiful part of the building, and the second list are the things that could very well inhabit the warehouse that's on the back of the building. Some of those things are going to start very soon, we understand, with arts groups in, you see that lower right-hand image. Those are the warehouse spaces on the back that could really be great spaces for arts groups. And some examples of other such facilities around the country that have done great jobs of exciting reuse. I just want to point out that we are looking at park operations, and that's not just mowing the grass. It's programming and administrative and security, and we're looking at ways to fund that, and we will be taking that into consideration. Real quickly, we introduced to the public last time this idea of different kinds of parks, Myriad Garden being a park that has a number of attractions and features that are tightly linked. You can see that with the red. Those red destinations are linked one to another. You move from one to the next. Compare that to a park like Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and you see our 70-acre reference outline there. It's more of a series of destinations set within a landscape. Or compare that to our project in Louisville, Waterfront Park, where the destinations are clumped together at nodes next to downtown or next to the neighborhood. These are models that we look to as we developed schemes, which I will now show you briefly. These are 3 alternative approaches. Again, we're not asking for a vote this evening, but we are asking for input to see what people like or don't like. Each of them are quite different as diagrams. Look at the red as the activity, and the green as the passive landscape, and the blue as potential water. And you can see very different approaches to how they might be distributed on the site. So starting with the first one, this is a scheme where there's a lot of activity toward downtown. And then the closer you get to the river, the more passive and sort of natural and landscape focused it becomes. So even the promenade, as you saw in that red line, starts out very clear and then becomes very circuitous and sort of a meandering walk through the woods with discovery along the way. So some of the features, and you'll see these in all of them, up at the corner of Robinson and the Boulevard, a very prominent, we call that our 100% corner. That's the corner where you want the interactive fountain, the fabulous public art maybe, where you want a cafe, where you want a park building, where you want the stage, and then hooked to that corner, a big green for performance and for gathering and for informal play. This could be a soccer field for the flat part, and then part of it is not flat, and I'll go ahead and go to the model shots that show that. Hopefully you can see that. Looking from the north, you see in the model how part of that oval green is tipped up to create a hill. And from that hill, you'll have big views of both the performance and downtown. And then a water feature behind that, which you see in the model shot, small water feature, where you could have water rowboats, a boathouse adjacent to that, children's play adjacent to that, activity along Robinson, because Robinson is an important urban edge, so urban gardens, court sports, the kinds of things that are, it takes a bigger park to do. People ask us, how is this park different from Myriad Gardens? What does it provide? Why is this size a good size? And the answer is really because it allows this kind of landscape that you see in this image that becomes the lungs of the city, really. It allows us to breathe, and it has a size that can accommodate, that green space could accommodate 15,000 people at a performance, and the whole park could accommodate, tens of thousands of people. So it's a different kind of venue, and also one that gives you that natural respite. In this last slide, just let me back up, you see it without any buildings around it except for a few reference buildings. This slide shows the potential with the blocks around it built up. So it gives you a sense of the possibilities of the future when all those blocks are developed. Then looking at that same scheme from the south end, you see what I mentioned earlier, where the south end of the park becomes more and more naturalistic and more about a simple sort of wooded landscape and a discovery walk through that landscape, along which you might discover sculpture. It might be a park course for exercise, or various recreational destinations, and then again built up in the future. Just a few close-up views. South Park, North Park, South Park. So a second approach where we distribute that activity throughout the park more from north to south. So there's a series of destinations, and it spreads our resources as well. Keep that in mind. It has an implication to budget. We either coalesce our budget up toward downtown, or in this scenario, we string it along the length of the park more toward the river. And you can see a more sort of straightforward connection from downtown to the river, where there's a more continuous character to the park of landscape with destinations and things to do within that landscape all along the way. So the same kinds of features. Two things to note that are different from this first scheme. One is the full edge of the boulevard is a sort of plaza edge in this case. In the first scheme, it was more of a landscape edge and a plaza edge. This is implying a plaza edge all along the boulevard, a more urban edge, a larger lake. So an idea of more of that paddle boating kind of activity. Also, I should note the connection here to Perez Park. We've met with representatives of the Latino community, and it's really important that we engage that park and help lift that park up as well, because it needs some love. So here's the model of that scheme and some evocative images of a larger lake and woodlands. And again, looking at it from the north, and again, that's that green being very important in all of these, that 100% corner with the interactive fountain being important in all of these. One thing to note in this view is the relationship of the lake to the Union Station. You can almost think of Union Station as having a lake at its front door and having a setting on this small lake. Well, bigger lake. And it's also important to note that the lake can be used in many ways. The green is multi-purpose. It can be used in many ways, as well as the fields that extend toward the river can be used in many ways. It's important, I think, that we don't create just a ball field park for single purpose, but create a park that can be used in many different ways. That gives you a sense of that fabulous prospect from the amphitheater performance green to the Union Station. And finally, a third approach that says, let's zone it not north to south, let's zone it east to west. And let's respond to the fact that Robinson is a very urban edge and put all our activity along that edge, and then have the west edge of the park be more passive and more landscape and more neighborhood oriented. As well, let's have the water not be a big body of water for play and recreation, but rather an environmental expression. At the top, those meadows would be dry meadows, and as you progress toward the river, those meadows, those clearings in the woodland would become wetlands and ponds, more about the aesthetics and the environmental quality, less about recreation. So that really gives you a sense of a difference, and I think you can see it in these evocative images in the model shots. Here, the performance green has a slightly different orientation because of that orientation to Robinson. So it orients both to Robinson and to downtown. I think that's one subtle difference that you see in the scheme. And then obviously a different approach to the water on the site and a different approach to the Robinson edge. So looking at it from the south, again without the buildings, and then with the buildings in the future. From the 100% corner, the interactive fountain, the shade structure, stage, and then in the southern end, the woodlands and the small wetland features. So those are the diagrams side by side and the schemes side by side, and a kind of assessment of the differences between them, the budget implications that are slightly different between them, the characters that are slightly different between them, and where the amenities are, which are slightly different between them. So I think I'm done, and of course, I think if anybody has any questions or comments, I'd be happy to hear them or answer them as I can. George, anything you want to add? Okay.
Questions or comments?
All I can say is I'm excited as seeing this today as I was yesterday, and I cannot wait until the public meeting this evening. This is just
Thank you,
phenomenal
Kim.
work.
Pretty soon, you're going to be able to give this, if you can't already.
Anyone else? Any comments, Mr. Hargraves?
Nothing really. I just, one of the things we're doing is we're kind of breaking the thing down so we can present it to you and the public and people understand the park. At the end of the day, our goal is to add it back up so that it creates a vision for a downtown park in Oklahoma City that supersedes the parts we're talking about, supersedes ideas of budget, supersedes all of the things that are common to parks, where it becomes unique to Oklahoma City. As a resident here in the 1960s, this town has changed a lot, I can tell you that. And it's, to me personally, to come back and be able to work on, I think, what is going to be the most significant downtown open space you're going to have is a real privilege. But I just want to say that we're trying to make this wind up being a strong vision that is going to work for this generation and future generations of Oklahoma City. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, yes.
That I'm really pleased and surprised that you picked up on the Manuel Perez Park. I love that idea of incorporating that. I can't think of any better way to continue the recognition of a formal, a Medal of Honor winner that represents this city, and thank you very much for doing that.
Anyone else? Well, I want to say just a public thank you to you and your firm, Mary Margaret and George. We are very much committed to an open, transparent, inclusive process. And the effort that you have made to help us achieve that goal, I think, has really been inspirational for all of us. I know that you've met with a lot of people during the time that you've been here, and you'll be tested tonight at the public meeting. But that's really important to our city and particularly to the Citizens Advisory Board, that you conduct the process just as you're doing it, and I just wanted to say a public thank you to you for the effort that you're putting into that. It means a lot to all of us. Thank you for being with us today. Anything else? All right, well, it is, that takes us to item 13. Any comments by the board? Kim?
I just had one comment in the fact that my councilman always reminds me that these are exciting times in Oklahoma City. And in the 20 years that I've lived here, I've heard that, and it has been exciting. And this week, from the dedication of the Devon Tower to Monday, remembering Ray Ackerman, who Ray Ackerman was not just an upstanding member of the advertising community, and not only in Oklahoma, but in the state of the United States and the world, but he was also Old Man River. And without his guidance, his vision in changing 7 miles of the North Canadian River to our river now, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I'm just extremely proud to help celebrate that as well.
Anyone else? David, I'm sorry.
Tom, I'd just like to say, I saw the letter you had, I guess, letter to the editor, and comments on the status of the projects, and I appreciate it. I thought it was very well done.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. David, anything from staff?
No?
Want to offer a chance to any citizen that's here, and I particularly want to acknowledge that we've got some students with us today, and this may be the first time you've attended one of these meetings. Are you guys from McGinnis High School?
Just I am. From Santa Fe.
Edmond Santa Fe? Well, this is a chance that you have to ask or make any comments that you want, and so if you have anything you'd like to ask the board or the consultants or anyone here, this is your chance to do it. Anything from you? Well, welcome. When you get back to school, tell them these are open meetings, and we're delighted to have you all here, and we hope that you'll come back. Anything else from our citizens? If not, shall we have a motion to adjourn? Been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. We're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
More information than you possibly want.